Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing some wood tier tray DIYs. Let's get into it. We're going to be making some patriotic things on a Dollar Tree budget. And first up, I have this piece that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. I believe this was last year on clearance. I say it in almost every video, if not every video, to check out sales after the holiday, knowing that you can use them the next year. So this has a little piece in the top. I guess probably it's for like a place card holder or something, but I'm going to take that out. You could also put like a photo in there, something like that. I don't know. But I'm going to save that because that can definitely be used in the future. I was wondering about the hole, if I was going to have to try to fill it in and paint it and disguise it. I just sanded it down a little bit and you can't even tell. We're going to leave the one side the red and white stripe so that it'll be a two-sided piece, which will look great on the tier tray since you'll be seeing it from both sides. And we're going to paint the star white. I am going to give it a couple of coats, and I'm trying really hard to not get any paint on the edges because I like that natural look. It's just an MDF. I know I said in the beginning, wood DIYs, we are using a lot of wood pieces. Sometimes it's the bases that is going to be wood, and some pieces it's going to be the embellishments. Once I had my first coat on, I wanted to do a second coat, and this time I just kind of stippled it on. This doesn't give it really a great, I mean, there is a little bit of a texture, but not like a huge, great difference in the texture. But it does eliminate the brush strokes, and for some pieces it's nice to not have the brush strokes. So that's what I'm doing here. Once that is dry, I'm going to go in with my antique wax and this stencil brush from the Dollar Tree and lightly go around the edges and the corners, and I will go across the whole thing. You're going to see I emphasize the corners mostly, and I go over this with a very light hand, wanting it to be kind of feathered, crossing, just kind of see the bristles go over the edge. I just build on it. I kind of start with a little bit and then build on it because it's obviously easier to add more than take away. There was one spot that maybe you saw some white paint got over the edge, and I just took my little sandpaper and was able to sand that down without a problem. So these DIYs are going to be not just all neutral, but they're definitely more rustic and farmhouse, but there is some color still. I did mix in some red, white, and blue, so you're going to see a lot of the same colors. Now for some embellishment, I have these wood pieces. These are from Hobby Lobby, and they are such a great price. There's so many pieces. Everything is at least 40% off right now, at least last I checked at Hobby Lobby. So go in, take a look around, and see what you can find. And this has so many pieces. I'll be using this for many years. I'm going to stain a couple of these pieces, one for the project we're working on now and one for later on, with some antique wax by Waverly. And I am just using a part of a baby wipe that I tore up, dabbing in a little bit of the antique wax and wiping that on. There's a lot of ways to do this. I didn't want it to be too dark of a stain because there is some details here on the USA that I wanted to be seen. This also allows it to dry really quickly. I kind of just dab it off with a baby wipe, and it's not heavy, it's not dark, and it doesn't take long to dry at all. I'm going to use the 4th of July piece here, and I'm just gluing or painting on some glue. This has so many little cutouts, so it's not like I could just pour the glue right on it. So I'm just taking a little paintbrush and some household glue that I'll show you at some point later on what I'm using. But any glue that dries clear would work great, and just place that on. And that is all I am doing for this piece. When doing a tier tray or a vignette and styling it, I like to have some pieces that are more bold, some that blend in, some with words, some without. And so I'm kind of keeping that in mind as I'm making these projects. So this one I went a little bit more neutral, although the back side does have some color, and I love that it is a double-sided sign. I didn't have to do anything with it, but I did go for more neutral for this piece. This is another one that I picked up at a Hobby Lobby. I've picked this up multiple times over the years. I have a few of them in my stash, and I love it. By itself, it's great, but I love the edge because I'm going to just leave the blue with the white stars, and we're going to just redo the front here. Now, you could just paint the back, but I wanted to leave it. I'm just showing you how I'm taking off the paper. I just spritzed it with some water and put a paper towel down, got it nice and wet, and let it sit for a few minutes, and then came back to look at it. Now, this actually came off really easy. Sometimes I have to use a little scraper tool, but I just kind of rolled it with my finger, and I was like, oh, this is just coming right up. Sometimes you have to go over it a couple times because there's different layers to the paper, but this came off really easy. I literally just used my finger to do this. Once I got off what I could with my finger, I did go over with a little bit of sandpaper to just smooth it out, and that just makes sure that when I paint it, that it just has a smoother finish. You could also glue on some cardstock or some type of scrap paper, and if it's thicker, you may not have to take off anything at all. but I like to do that when I can. I just feel like you don't have to worry about it peeling off after you've done whatever you're doing to it. And a lot of times paint will moisten the paper and cause it to curl up anyway. So I just like to take it off. We're going to paint this white as well. Once again, trying to leave the paint off of the edge, just to leave that detail there. And so I'm just kind of going close to the edges so that I don't get any. And I was able to just take like a white, a damp paper towel. Paper towel is white, but I was trying to say wet and damp. I don't know. But a wet paper towel and just wipe off any excess that did get there. And I did do this in 2 coats as well. So do whatever you need to do here. Once we had our second coat on and it was all dry, it was time to distress. Actually, it's not time to distress yet. We are going to do that, but not quite yet. I'm going to paint some stars, some wood stars that I had in my stash, and they're so tiny, so I just put them on the sticky side of some painter's tape, and we're going to paint the large ones blue and the small ones red and let those dry. Those just took one little coat, not a big deal. I don't think I showed you yet, I will show you later, but I'm using Oceans by Waverly and Crimson by Waverly. I love using those colors for the Patriotic decor. These stamps I picked up from the Dollar Tree. I was so excited to find these. I will say I'm peeling them all off right now because there was some hairs stuck underneath and it kind of grossed me out. So I took care of that. And then you do have to cut apart each of the individual letters and numbers, but this is a great stamp set. I was so excited to find this. I was at a different Dollar Tree that I don't normally go to. We were in a different town and I was like, hey, let's go in really quick to my husband, and we did, and I bought these. And so I'm just going to separate the letters right now. I'm just kind of pulling off the ones I need, and I also have this clear block at the bottom. You can see that is also from the Dollar Tree, and the ink I'm using is from the Dollar Tree. So Dollar Tree prices have gone up. Some of their items aren't that great. I often find better deals at Hobby Lobby and Dollar General, especially with the clearance finds, but there are still some places where I feel like Dollar Tree does really well, and these stamps are some of them. They worked great. If you don't have one of these clear blocks, a plastic mat of some kind would also work, but it just helps so that you don't have to handle the flat stamp on its own. And I'm just centering it. I was nervous about spelling out the word because I decided to do Liberty, and I am wiping this off with a baby wipe. That's what I'm doing here. I wanted to make sure it was centered and not all letters, are the same width, but it ended up working out pretty good. I think I did all right with this, and I'm just kind of starting from the middle and working my way around. And some of them came out darker than others. I could have gone back over them, but I like that kind of more, rustic, imperfect look. But it's easy to read. This ink tricks me. It looks like there's not a lot of ink on the stamp rather, and then I go to stamp and it looks fine. So I may start looking for some other colors of ink. If you are new here, I want to say hi and welcome. My name is Leanne, and I enjoy sharing budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel, showing you how to do some crafts at home on a budget. Most of it is some home decor. And if you're new, I would love it if you would consider subscribing before you leave so that you don't miss out on my future videos, and make sure you hit that notification bell. Once my ink was dry for the word Liberty, I'm going over very, very lightly with my antique wax with very little on my brush, and I am going across the whole thing in addition to the edges. Now this is the Gorilla household glue that I'm going to use. I am going to paint it on to these little stars and use some tweezers. Tweezers are a very handy tool in your craft room. I'm going to use a paintbrush to apply a little bit of glue, enough to cover everything but not to have it, oozing out too much. I do make sure that I use a glue that does dry clear in case some of it, gets out in the edges, which it did, but you can't see it in the end. And then I'm going to use my tweezers to carefully place this on top, the smaller one on top of the larger star. And then I did actually place something like a bottle of paint on top to hold it still while the glue set while I did the others. I did want to mention a little something with YouTube. If you are on YouTube and you are not seeing people that you normally see, you're not seeing their new videos, check where you're watching YouTube from. I'm going to keep this simple, but whether you're on your phone or a computer or TV, the default for YouTube is to bring you to your home page, which sometimes will show you people that you're subscribed to and sometimes will not. So I encourage you, this is what I do as well, to make sure you click on the subscription page on your phone. It is on the bottom of the screen. On your TV or computer, it is on the left of the screen. I'm not sure for a tablet, but check that at least once a day to make sure that you don't miss out. and that will make sure you see those who you are subscribed to's videos. So I don't know why YouTube defaults to the homepage instead of the subscription page, but they do. Once the stacked stars were all dry, I glued them onto each corner, and this is how the sign came out. Let me know what you guys think about this. I love how this one came out. If you need some ideas of different words to use in your projects, just do a little search on Pinterest or Google. The base for this project also comes from Hobby Lobby. This little cutting board was from their spring and Easter collection. I picked up quite a few of them because I got them super, super cheap. One side has this little bunny on it, and I wasn't sure how well it would paint over it without sanding it, so I decided to give it a try. So I'm giving it a light sanding, and then we're going to get to painting it. You can just paint, do the other side, which is what I've done previously, but I was curious how well it would work, so I just gave it a little sanding. Let me just tell you, we're able to cover it no problem with paint. So I'm going to do a little flag scenario. You probably have seen this or something similar quite a few times. I'm using some painter's tape to tape off the top, and then we're going to also tape off some stripes. I move them around to be a little off center type, I guess off center might be the way to say it. Yeah, because otherwise one side was going to have a really, really thin stripe, and so I made it so that the two end pieces were both not a whole stripe. I hope that that makes sense. I'm pressing that down, and we're going to start with the white stripes because white is easier to cover with another paint versus the red or the blue. So we're going to do our white. I do dry with my heat gun, and I'm very careful in between coats, trying to make sure we don't have too much paint. You don't want it to go under the painter's tape, although I did press it down, and then try not to get any paint on the edge of the cutting board. But we're going to dry it with my heat gun, and then I did a second coat, and then I took the tape off and made sure that the white stripes were very dry, and then taped it off again. And we're going to do this once again with the Crimson by Waverly and giving the stripes 2 coats. If you're enjoying this video, I would appreciate it if you would give it a thumbs up, hit the like button at the top. It's just underneath the video. And also, if you want to say hello down in the comments, let me know you're here. If you're not sure what to say, leave me an American flag emoji or something along those lines. It lets me know you're here. It also helps support my channel. When YouTube notices likes and comments and all sorts of engagement, it lets them know that you're enjoying the video and makes them think, okay, maybe somebody else is also going to enjoy this video, and then they're likely to share my video with others, which of course helps me out. Once I had my red and white stripes done, I made sure that was fully dry, and we're going to tape off, giving a slight overlap to make sure that we have everything fully covered, and we're going to give this the top piece a couple coats of Ocean by Waverly. I did go in with a little white paint and do a tiny bit of touch-up once everything was dry, but honestly, it really wasn't too bad, and I also wasn't super worried about it. I'm going to take this star stencil from Hobby Lobby. This is not any of their seasonal stuff. It was just in their craft area, and I use it all the time. It has various sizes of stars. There's a few things that if you're going to go spend money on, you know that you're going to get lots of use out of it. At regular price, this was less than $5. And I don't know that I even paid the full price for it. But we're going to stencil on multiple stars across the blue. First, I was going to do one size, but I decided to go in with multiple different sizes. Every couple of stencils, I do wipe it down with either a baby wipe or like a wet paper towel, just because I didn't want any paint that might have gotten through to the underside of the stencil to transfer, where I didn't want it to. So I also did dry it with my heat gun in between so that I could keep moving and not worry about smearing any of the white stars. If you do not have a heat gun, a hair dryer on low heat works well, and I used that for a long time before I got my heat gun. And I'm just doing this however I wanted to, no specific rhyme or reason. And then once that was dry, I think you guys get the point. Make sure it's dry before you move on. I went in with a little bit of antique wax because that is the look I'm going for. I'm going for the more rustic look here. So I go around the edges and a little bit across the top. Very light-handed, minimal product on the brush and a very light hand. And then I just build on it as I go. And then I'm going to use that glue and attach another one of these wood pieces that we stained earlier. And it just says USA. It does have some engraved stars in it, which is really pretty. And I just used some of that glue to attach that. Thankfully, I dropped it top side down instead of glue side down. It would have been fine. I could have just wiped it off, but all is well. And I just attached that to the bottom right corner. I just thought that looked really nice. Let me know what you guys think of this one. I love how this came out, and I've seen this type of flag pattern done on cutting boards or other pieces, but I've never done it myself. So this was the time to do it, and I really do like how this came out. For this DIY, we're going to start off with our wood piece, and it is a domino piece from the Dollar Tree. It is pretty sturdy, but yet thin enough that it can be cut with a pair of scissors. We're not needing to cut it this time, but I've used these for so many different things. They come in a great pack. It's in the game section, and the back side is just kind of a plain wood. So we're going to give this a coat of white paint, and I am using white chalk paint by Waverly. Doesn't really matter necessarily. And I'm going to let that dry, and we're going back to our stamps from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to the numbers this time, and we're going to cut out the numbers that we are needing, and we're going to ink them up with our ink pad, and just wiping off any excess ink onto that little stamping block so that we don't get ink where it's not supposed to be. And we are going to stamp on 1776, the year that our country was born. Making sure the ink is dry, which doesn't take long, we're going to distress, of course, this piece with a little antique wax. I know, a little predictable, but I am creating pieces to go together, so it kind of makes sense. We're going to focus on the edges and drag a little bit across the top. Now this metal star piece came from Hobby Lobby, and I used another piece of it in last video, I think it was. There was another wood star on top, and so here is the metal part, and we're going to be gluing our domino piece on top. There are a couple of holes in the middle here, and I knew I wanted to put a plaque of some kind, and the dominoes were perfect to cover up those holes. And then there's a hole at the top as well from the other piece that was attached on. So we are going to cover that up in a second as well. When I pressed this down, I did press really firm while the glue was nice and hot because it will cool quickly when it hits metal, and I wanted to make sure it got flattened out and wasn't bulky. But some of the glue came out the side, and I just scraped that off. Now I'm going to use, this was a scrap of ribbon, but I do think this is a ribbon I'm using later on, and I'll show you the packaging from burlap.com, but I just had this scrap piece laying on my crafting table, and I was like, ooh, I like that. So I tied a simple shoestring bow, and we're going to put that right over the hole there. And once again, using my little hook tool from the Dollar Tree, it's a Dollar Tree's version of a Cricut tool, to scrape out the glue. Do it while the glue is still wet, and it's a lot easier. And then I'm going to use this ribbon from Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to make another bow, and I'm just going to mess with it, making, pulling it, making the loops bigger, smaller, tightening it, etc., until I get it to the size that I want, because I wanted it to be a little bit smaller. We're going to layer it. I thought about trying to tie the two ribbons together at the same time, but it was just too bulky. Now this was a little too vibrant for the rest of the DIYs, so I'm taking some antique wax and I'm wiping that on with a baby wipe across the ribbon. Did you know you could distress ribbon? Yes, you can. So I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue, and we're going to glue that right on top and layer those two up, just pressing it firm. I've noticed that's one thing I sometimes move too quickly on, holding it down until the glue sets for a second. And then I am going to put a little bit of glue, not to glue the two tails of the ribbons fully together, but just enough to make them lay nicely, if that makes sense. So a very thin layer on just one little part of it to help that lay how it needs to. And then I'm just going to trim down the sides of the ends of the ribbon. They were going out perfectly to not cover up the sign, so I didn't have to worry about that. And I just cut them at an angle. You could also dovetail them, whatever you want. And that is it. I do have it leaning up against something, that's why you can see something white underneath, but just so that I could show this to you, and I will share it with you at the end on my tiered tray. Every tier tray and vignette needs a piece to hold some greenery. I have this little tin that I got from Hobby Lobby for Christmas a long time ago, and often I just turn it around on my tier tray and use it and don't even worry about the Merry Christmas. But this time I decided I was going to cover it up, but we're going to do it in a way that I can easily peel it off. Hot glue is something magical. It can definitely hold well, but on the right surface, if you just heat it up a little bit, you can peel it off. So I'm going to use some hot glue to put this burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree on here. We're going to go for a nice layered effect. This little spatula, silicone spatula tool is so handy from the Dollar Tree. The next layer is going to be this linen ribbon from the, did I say ribbon or linen? I think I said it properly. but you saw it. It's a ribbon from burlap.com. I'll try to remember to have that linked down below for you. We're going to do that across the middle, and we're just using a little bit of hot glue on each end, and I'm using, when needed, that little silicone spatula to hold it down, and that way you don't, burn yourself. And then this is another ribbon I have from Hobby Lobby. I picked up a year or so ago. They often have the same ones year after year with maybe an additional one added. Now, I did not do any hot glue all the way around, so I'm just making sure it's centered and lined up the way I want and pulling that nice and tight. And then I was gonna leave it there, but I found these, forgot about these, that I have in my stash. This is also from burlap.com. I got them in a couple colors, and they are these beautiful burlap bows. They have a little clear twisty tie, which I didn't need, so I pulled that out. I'll have these linked for you as well. And I hot glued that to the center, added in some greenery, and I don't know, I don't want to say this is my favorite because I really like everything in this one, but I love how this one came out. And like I said, you got to have a little pop of greenery in every vignette. Here is how I put everything together on my tiered tray. I added in some pieces I had from previous years that I've crafted or things that I've picked up, and just little accent pieces that I thought went well together, making sure it was beautiful from both sides. Let me know what you think about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure that you subscribe before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up and say hello down in the comments to let me know you're here and to support my channel and help it grow. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.